Well, this is not wanting to exactly cooperate here. I guess I'll just keep it standing up on my phone. Won't go into landscape mode. Wait for a few people to... Oh, wrong thing. Let's see. Come on. Oh, jeez. Trying to deal with all this crap on my phone, going through all these settings here. All right, well, we got one person. I can get started here on a little bit of an explanation. So it is taking forever, and I have absolutely hated it to get this thing put together. So the last time I went live, started to talk about how I was going to start assembling the short block and getting the crank put in and everything. And I went to go do that, and thank God I used my caliper, or not my calipers, my micrometers and my dial bore gauge to check all my main clearances, because the machine shop that I took it to previously had screwed up the journal size in the main caps when he did the line hone. So, hey, I appreciate that. Hopefully this one will sound a little bit better. But anyways, yeah, I'm glad I checked all that stuff, and it took forever for this new machine shop, which I'd rather just wait it out and get it done right. So everything is good now with the mains. Everything is all aligned and clearance the way it should be, and the crank spins nice and free. It's a little cold in here, but it's got a Lucas assembly lube in there, so it's a little bit tighter because it's about 40 degrees out here. It's nice and it's really thick. But I just got done file fitting the rings, so that was nice. I got my little jig set up over on the workbench, and nobody's watching. All right. What happened here? I might be having some technical difficulties. I'll wait for this to pop back up. I don't know what's going on here. All right, we got one back here. Okay, so a few of you were asking why I'm not running a girdle, and honestly, the short and sweet answer of that is, in my opinion, I don't see the need for one, just because if all the machine work is done properly and the main caps are sitting exactly perfect in the block, and these are cut at 90 degrees and these are cut at 90 degrees, or I don't know if it's 90 degrees, but perfectly flat with each other, and the amount of clamp load that these studs have to offer, there is no reason why this main cap should be moving with or without a girdle. So I really just don't see any purpose for it. I know a lot of people were curious about me doing that, and another part of the reason why I'm not is just because the Chryslers have such much larger main bearing and bottom end hardware than such as a Chevy or a Ford does, and that's why the Chevys and the Fords have 4-bolt mains, but they use smaller bolts. So that's kind of why they're needed to have 4 on each main cap, and the Chryslers just, a lot of the factory blocks just use 2, other than the Hemis and the TA blocks, which were meant for a lot of high RPM all the time, which this is too, but all the machine work and specifications were all gone through, and everything was made sure that it was pretty much perfect. And like I said, these studs are much stronger than the main bolts, so there's no reason that the main cap should be moving whatsoever. Obviously, the cast iron caps are going to be weaker than opposed to like a billet steel main cap, but I wasn't able to find a billet steel main cap that was a 2-bolt main for a small block. I was able to find 4-bolt main ones, which really is not great if you have to drill into this, because this webbing in here is so thin. It's really, honestly, probably just going to weaken the block. So I really didn't see any point in that either. See what else. I mean, there's really there's nothing special about it. It's just make sure your machine works right and your balancing is good, and just put some main studs in it, and it should be good to go for a long time. The only reason my previous block had failed and why this happened, you can see I had main studs. The crankshaft broke and it pulled the whole main saddle out of the block. You can see the bearing and everything is still spinning freely on the crankshaft, so there was nothing wrong with running this 2-bolt main setup with this cast iron cap at 7,000 plus RPM for 2 or 3 years. The crank, it was a cast crank, so it just decided to give up on life, which was pretty unfortunate. So that's why I went with much better quality parts in this engine that I'm building now. I don't know, I'm sure I probably said it before, but this is another 318 based engine, just to prove all of the haters that 318s are extremely capable engines, and there is no reason why they can't compete with any other small block or even big blocks. So I'm really hoping to get this thing done in maybe the next 2 weeks or so. All I have to do now is get the short block together, and then I can measure for my push rods when I get the camshaft in. That is the last thing that I need. I don't have any wild change in my deck height or my cylinder head, so I don't think it should be a problem getting some push rods within 2 or 3 days of ordering them, probably from Summit Racing. That's where I get all my stuff. So they're pretty good about having stuff in stock and shipping it out and getting it to you pretty quick. So the next thing, let's see, today's Friday. I have to work tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday. I'm taking off Monday to go to the junkyard at, there's a LKQ, or there's a couple of them by me. I bought a new truck finally, so I'll have something to tow the CUDA. So I need to just look for a trailer in the meantime while I'm finishing assembly on this. But the guy that I took this to have all the machine work and the line hone corrected, he's going to dyno this engine. So I don't know if I'm going to make a whole separate video of dynoing this engine, or if I should include it in the video of when I'm doing the assembly, or if I should just do a live. Or your dad is with you. Yeah, sure, I can show you the car. Excuse the huge mess right now. Hang on, I gotta clean off my camera. I got some oil on it. Turn this off. It's about as good as it's gonna get. So, yeah, I just have this here. My little baggies, I labeled all my rings for all my cylinders, so those are all ready to go. You can see how dusty it is from sitting in here, but this is my car. So this car actually is it's a 67. It's not a 68. They're very, very, very similar cars, but the only difference between them is really 68s just have marker lights, and taillights are a little bit different, and the grill's a little bit different, but the bodies are the same. So yeah, this thing is just sitting here collecting dust, and it really disheartens me, but it'll be getting ready to go here soon. Still got my rocker arm sitting in here. I got the steering column out right now because I had to do some repair on it, because it was honestly pretty scary to drive before the lower support bearing in the steering shaft failed. and it was just moving like all over the place. So there's my old trashed clutch in there, radiator. It's got my cam over there. There's nothing special about the inside of the car. It's completely stock. It's still got the inland shifter. The only thing I've done is just I fabricated some aluminum door panels for it, which really need to be cleaned and polished because they've been sitting a while. But yeah, the inside's just completely bare bones 67 stock. But I was thinking about getting some seats that could incorporate a harness to drive around on the street, and especially at the drag strip, because these low back seats are not safe at all at the drag strip. Even though they're very comfortable, they're not safe at all. So that's that. Here's I had a 273 emblem on there, and it flew off somewhere. I have no idea where it went. The engine blew up that hard. It knocked my emblem off my fender. It's looking a little sad right now. I got rags in my case for my torque wrench and my dial bore gauge and my micrometer and all that stuff I've just had out for doing the assembly on my engine. I can't really see it too well at the front, but it's got a Hemi scoop if you were still wanting to show your dad over there. That's about it. There's really nothing too spectacular about it. If you're still there and wanting to see, I have the Caltrax bars and monoleaf suspension in the rear. And my tires are here. I got some thick boys right here. Some 10.5 slicks, which can be done on an A body without tubbing it, despite what everybody says. Just like everybody said you can't make power with a 318, and I've done both. So there's a lot of keyboard warriors out there. Everybody stay alert. Don't listen to what everybody says on the internet. There's a lot of things that can be done that people say can't be done. So I also, to pick up some more power, I put merge collectors on my headers. I'm going to be upping the compression on my engine along with these. And I did a ton of port work on my intake manifold. It's not really going to focus. Don't have great lighting over here, but I worked this thing the best I possibly could without having to send it out to get CNC machined anywhere. I've got about 10 hours into this intake manifold. These ports are nice and wide opened up. I got them all. I want about 2 or 3 inches deep in the top and in the bottom. So that's the most affected area in these, is to about here up on the top and about here in the bottom. So that's done and ready to go. So my old push rods aren't exactly usable. These things took a hammering. Also on my cylinder heads, fortunately and unfortunately at the same time, they had to have 10 of the valves had to be replaced, but only I think 3 or 4 of them were slightly bent, but the other ones were just leaking, and they were machined horribly from trick flow, so the heads are completely gone through. I was able to get some titanium, lost my train of thought, some titanium retainers for my cylinder heads. The machine shop had some just left over from a previous race engine he built, and I got them for like $200, which is a steal for titanium retainers. It'll help a little bit with my valve train stability, just with the RPM I like turning in this, especially because it's a stick car. I love winding the hell out of this thing to like 7,500 RPM. So hopefully everything will be good to go for a while. Like I said, I didn't really, for my budget, didn't cheap out on anything. I got the best of what I could possibly afford. So I went in and I ported all my oil galleys. I ported this one for the oil pump. I went underneath on the underside of the main cap and on the block side. I didn't even do any of this on my other engine, and it survived for about 3 years until, like I said, the crankshaft failed due to a casting issue. But yeah, this thing was a trooper for a long time. How you guys see me racing my car and doing burnouts and beating the hell out of it is exactly how I drive it every time I go out to drive it. So for it to hold up that long, yeah, here's my my paperweight. This was from the last engine when the crankshaft broke. And the Girdle is still connected to these two rods. But I went ahead actually and I got these same scat connecting rods because obviously if they can hold up to that and not break, that is a very good, for the money, a very good connecting rod. They're only about $450 and it's a forged rod. So it's really not hard to get power out of small blocks if you got a little bit of a budget. If you can spend maybe $2,000 or $3,000 on a small block, you can get it up and get it pretty good. But this crank, I think it was about $1,000, so that set me back a little bit. I already had my intake manifold, I already had my carburetor, I already had this block. It was sitting under my bench with my other one, so the block didn't cost me anything. I just had to pay for the machine work. I had the studs already. So pretty much I just had to buy a rotating assembly and I had the block already. But trust me when I tell you it is worth every minute of going and doing fine detail work in your engine. I went on the insides. I don't know how well you're really going to be able to see it right now. You can see it a little bit on this cap right here, but I went on the outside, inside, and the radius of the block and the main cap on the entire thing and all through this main webbing and deburred all of it to completely eliminate any risk or drastically lower the risk of any stress cracks starting in the block anywhere. Like I said, I mean, these are still factory 318 main caps, just like that one, and they took I'm going to go ahead and say it, and I know a lot of people probably agree and a lot of people disagree, that held what I thought was 600 horsepower in that 318 block for almost 3 years, just going off of my ETs. It's a 3,300-pound car, stick car, and it ran 1070s, so that's busting ass. That's moving out pretty good for a 318. Yes, this is another 318 block. It is the same year, actually, as that one was that I used. It's a 67 date 318 block. But all these oil modifications, honestly, that people do, I really don't think are necessary. If you have all the right parts and it's assembled correctly, and just doing little small stuff like this, if you just smooth out all your oil passages and open them up a little bit and just make sure the thing is clean when you put it together, there's no reason why you should do that. If you have a good quality, excuse me, high volume oil pump, it should pump all the oil that you need. Yeah, that was quarter mile. And it's got 410s in it in the rear end, which isn't anything absurd. It's not like I've got 513s in it or 488s. I can still drive it around on the road. I can still drive it wherever I want to and still go run 10s at the drag strip with a naturally aspirated small block 318 block. You know, everybody's like, oh, it's not a 318 anymore. Well, I mean, that may be true to a certain extent, but at the same time, that's my whole channel, honestly. I mean, it's not huge by any means, but all of the people that I have had subscribe and the views and the commenters have 99% of them have came from my last 318 engine where I ran 10s with it naturally aspirated. and it got a lot of hate, but honestly, about 90% of it was just love from people, and I loved that people appreciated doing something like this, because for so many years and such a long time, everybody just rags on the 318 like it's just a complete boat anchor, and it's really not. There's such small differences between a 318 and a 340 that a lot of people don't know. 340s have I think it's like 40 thousandths thicker main caps, which is really negligible, especially if you use the studs like I was mentioning, and if you deburr them, and they're really all strong. But it's worth, like I said, just take your time, spend the money on the good parts. You only have to buy them one time and not have to worry about it. So I guess that'll be that for this evening. Going on past 20 minutes so of my rambling. So I'm going to hopefully go to the drag strip again Sunday. My dad, which is completely badass, finally got another race car. He hasn't had a race car since I was about 10 years old. I'm 25 now. So it really meant a lot to me to see him get something, and I was able to help him build the car. And I'm just really looking forward to having my car back together and being able to go to the drag strip with him. That's just something I've dreamed of for years, ever since I was younger, before I could even drive. I didn't think it was ever going to happen, but I was able to go, or we were able to go last weekend. And he has a 71 Duster. It's a 440. Well, it's a 512 out of a 440 block. And it dynoed. It's naturally aspirated. It made a 750 horsepower naturally aspirated, which is pretty freaking sweet. But he went and he only made 2 passes, and he completely grenaded his 8 3/4 that was in the car. So he had another, I guess, donor spare rear end in a 73 Dart that he's got also, but it's got 456 gears, so hopefully it'll hold up and it'll take a little strain off the rear end. But yeah, I'll definitely make sure to take some footage of his cars, whether it's alive or being in a part of my video. But I was just so excited last weekend. I didn't think anything of recording or going live, just because, like I said, it's been a decade since I've seen my dad race, and I was just so happy to see it. We ran into some trouble with the car. The trans line at the cooler was leaking, so we had to try and disassemble the AN fittings at the track and get that put back together, recut the line and put a new fitting on there, so try and seal it up. And then it worked for the first 2 passes, and then on the second, about halfway down the second pass, the rear end blew up. I mean, that's part of racing. So, I mean, it happens. Everybody's going to break at some point. Something's going to leak, something's going to break, something's going to blow up. It all happens. It happens to all brands, all makes, all models, all engines. None of them are perfect. None of them will last forever. So, let's see. I got to work again tomorrow. If I get some free time tomorrow evening, I might do another live. I like being able to talk to you guys and read all your comments and just be able to talk and chill out. So it's also been hectic. I started a new job about a month ago, so I've been transitioning there and moving all my stuff and trying to get this together. And then I just got my new to me truck. It's a 05 Ram, so that's needs a few small things for me to be comfortable with it and be able to feel comfortable towing my car to Carlisle. I'm going to start working on that and getting it ready over the next few months. Just do small things here and there. But yeah, the Cuda, this engine will be ready in the next hopefully 2 weeks or so, and I'll definitely shoot some footage of it on the dyno. I'm very scared to see what it's going to make. I think it'll make. I'm very optimistic with the heads and the cubic inch and the compression and just all the small things like those merge collectors and porting the intake, a little bit more compression. Little things here and there add up a lot. If you can get 5 horsepower here, 10 horsepower there on 4 or 5 things, that's 40, 50 horsepower. So I appreciate you guys for chiming in, and I'll catch you next time.